So based on the video about the GAAP and the CVP income statement, I wanted to walk through a couple of videos. So this is our quote unquote in-class examples, and we're going to look at tab 1 and tab 2 for right now. So essentially, what this activity is getting you to think about is how we classify different cost of goods sold, selling and administrative expenses between variable and fixed. Now, this data set is pretty simple, okay? It actually just tells you which portions of cost of goods sold are variable and which portions are fixed. Same for selling and administrative, and also, well, that's the two categories, selling and administrative, okay? So as we prepare a CVP income statement, a couple of things to point out. One, remember, sales are not any different. So as we think about that amount of sales, regardless of what we're talking about in terms of variable or fixed, sales are always sales. Now here, simply to populate this, we're going to put in, and I'm going to show you guys a little reference here. Some of you may know how to do this, but if you click the equal sign, you just click the cell that you want, we can just automatically format those. So all my variable expenses are going to be linked up to the variable expense column. And then over here, I'm just going to sum them. So this one's really pretty straightforward. Again, we're just separating out variable versus fixed. Now remember, our key equation is sales minus variable expenses. So I'm going to do an equals, and I'm going to do sales minus variable expenses, or total variable cost gives us that contribution margin. Now here are all of my fixed expenses. So I'm just going to have them equal and match up right to my fixed expense side. Okay, so again, just showing us that cost of goods sold, selling and administrative expenses are not all variable and not all fixed. So as a company, we'd have to understand that. And I won't ask you to necessarily tell me which ones, with cost of goods sold, how would you break those out in specific detail? I just want you to know that they can be variable and they can be fixed. And based on how the costs change, remember, variable costs are different in total because per unit they are the same and they vary directly and proportionately to changes in activity. Fixed costs in total always remain the same. All right, so now I got my fixed costs in here. So that's my total fixed cost, and my net income or loss now, our calculation is contribution margin minus the fixed cost. Now in example 2, this one's a little bit more difficult, but not terrible, okay? So again, we've got 5 million in sales. So we're going to put that 5 million here. Okay, but now it says if this is total cost and this is the variable portion, well, guess what? That means that my fixed portion has to be the remaining percentage to get me to 100. So this has to be 20%. Whoops, there we go. This has to be 60%, and this has to be 80%. Okay. So I'm just going to make sure my percentages work here, which they should. So, all right. So again, thinking about this, in the first example, it just gave you variable and fixed. Now it just gave you variable, so all you're doing is finding the fixed portion, okay? So the way we can do this down here is calculate our cost of goods sold. I'm going to take, for my variable expense, my total times my variable portion, because 80% is variable. So again, this isn't necessarily a matter of can you do the math, it's just understanding we're breaking out the variable and the fixed components. So my selling is 40% and my admin is 20%. So again, do my sum. And notice here, I'm just putting an equal sign. Sum, you can also fix. I'll show you how to click the function button up here in just a minute. Okay, my contribution margin is my sales revenue minus variable expenses, and that gives me contribution margin. Now, I could do this a couple of different ways. I could do my total minus my cost of goods sold. Okay, so notice that's 510. Or I can take my total times my fixed portion, and it's 510. So however you choose to do it, Notice my multiply is my asterisk. 670 times 80. All right, now I can also do a function by clicking this function button, and then you have kind of access to a whole bunch of these. So I want my sum, I'm going to click OK, and then it's going to bring me up this. I just want to select my data. I can click this and then click OK, and there's my sum. So a couple of different ways to do it. And then again, net income. Again, this is the important formula. Contribution margin minus total fixed costs gives me my net income. So that is simply breaking out our GAAP components, which are here, into the CVP components, which are here.